Crazy enough.
They got like two.
There's like nothing else promoted in this spot.
They were gonna look at. I was just got this one.
County Planning Commission. If you would flag, and as I say, for which it stands. Thank you. Please be seated. Mr. Ryder, if you would call the roll, please.
Ms. Townsend,
Here.
Ms. Johnson,
Here.
Mr. Moyer, Mr. Dombrowski,
Here.
Ms. Thomas,
Here.
Thank you.
Mr. La Rochelle,
Here.
Dr. Schmidt,
Here.
Mr. Davis,
Here.
Ms. Rose,
Here.
Reverend Hathaway,
Here.
Mr. Bennett.
Here. We have a quorum. The next item on our agenda, and item number 4, is the approval of the minutes for February 17th, 2026. Commissioners, if you have any additions, corrections, or notations that need to be made to the minutes, let's announce them now, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
page 6, on the bottom paragraph, my name is misspelled in the second line.
Whoops.
Locker hell. So,
That's how you say it. Oh, that's okay. Any other changes, commissioners? If there's none other, I will hear a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
The motion is to approve the minutes for February 17th, 2026. Roll call, please.
Ms. Townsend,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Abstain.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Ms. Thomas,
Aye.
Mr. La Rochelle,
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Ms. Rose,
Aye.
Reverend Hathaway,
Aye.
Mr. Bennett.
Aye. Next item of our agenda is the citizen comment period. I'll remind the audience that in order to speak, you please sign up on the list at the foyer of the building. And the comments that you proposed at this period of time are not on any item that's before us for consideration. So of the two items, you can speak on anything but the two items we have under consideration. And there's nobody to speak on the citizen comment period, so I'll close that part of the meeting. Item number 6, presentation. Do we have anything worthy to present, Mr. Aragi or Mr. Silla? None? Moving on to item number 7, unfinished business. Staff? No? Okay. Moving right along. Item number 8, new business. Well, we cannot go right to the public hearing session because it's not 6:30. So what I'll do is I'll move on through our agenda to item number 10, which is the chairman's report, which is my report, and I have a couple items I'd like to mention. On March 5th of this year, there was a informational meeting on a proposed subdivision rezoning for Pine Fork Ridge. About 50 people attended that, including a couple of the commissioners and a couple of the Board of Supervisors members. There was a lot of questions asked, not a lot of answers, but I'm sure that the applicant is trying to make appropriate answers to those questions that were being posed. On the 13th of this month, there was about 10 of us, including a couple of board members, many of the commissioners here, and several of the staff that went to a information-seeking field trip to a Virginia Power substation, Dominion Virginia Power substation, and subsequent data center. Mr. La Rochelle was very, very, very helpful, along with Lindsay Hurt to arrange this. I will tell you that it was very, very eye-opening. The information that was shared was very truthful and honest, and really helped fill in a lot of the gaps that many of the commissioners had. During that time, there was no decision made. I'll make sure I say that, but we did have a very, very, very healthy discussion. That concludes my report. Item number 11, Plan RVA report. Reverend Hathaway, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I submitted a package to everyone. Hopefully you got it, very detailed. But if there are any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer those questions. A couple of things that I would like to highlight. Ms. Jordan Stewart was reelected as chair of the Planning Commission, and that took an amendment to the bylaws, but it was unanimously passed by the Executive Committee and the full Planning Commission. She has done an outstanding job. Absolutely. We did look at a number of pieces of legislation that Plan RVA supported that came through the General Assembly, most of them dealing with housing, affordable housing, so I gave you a detail on that. But there are some significant changes. One of them deals with the ADUs, and I would like at some point for us to revisit ours, because I think there's some things we can do to improve that.
Okay, thank you.
And I sat on the Program Outreach and Strategic Engagement Subcommittee, and the chairperson there would love an opportunity to come and share with any boards and commissions or even community organizations. Plan RVA does an awful lot for the county. There's a considerable amount of money that comes to the county through Plan RVA. So they are available to meet with any groups. That's all.
Thank you. Would you like to continue with any information you can share with the Housing Committee at this time? Or if there's any.
Yeah, no, we just really talked about what we talked about.
Okay. All right, thank you. That covers it all. Now to Commissioner's report, and I'll start with Mr. La Rochelle, if you have anything to present to the Commission.
Just one thing, Reverend Hathaway. I think a couple of times you mentioned Jordan Stewart. I think you said Planning Commission, you mean Plan RVA, right? The chairperson of Plan RVA. And I'm glad that thank you for your comments about the tour that we did. For those that were there, I hope it was useful and nothing else, informative to help as we potentially face this issue going forward, that we all that were there have a better understanding of what is involved with the data center and the other substations and everything else that are involved. So we got to see it up close and personal. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Thomas, do you have anything for us, please?
Not at this time.
Thank you very kindly. Ms. Johnson?
Not at this time.
Mr. Dombrowski?
I have nothing to report from our district.
Thank you. Ms. Townsend, please.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
If you would, I'd like to read you a letter that I was going to submit to the Planning Commission. And then I have a letter that I'd like to just verbally read out to the public. So the first letter is, throughout my years of services on the Planning Commission, I've constantly heard from residents about the importance of preserving our county's rural character. While growth and progress are inevitable, thoughtful and responsible planning makes it possible to achieve both, maintaining our heritage while embracing our future. The county has an opportunity to establish guidelines and safeties that provide a stronger protection rather than waiting for an application to be submitted without regulations already in place. Without clear, defined guidelines, some issues could fall beyond our control. I would rather have a necessary tool in place beforehand than come to the table unprepared. Progress is necessary to provide the essential services to our citizens. Every time you use a patient's portal at a doctor's office, or pay your bills online, or save your photos on your phone, or complete everyday tasks on your computer, you are relying on the cloud. You may not always realize it, but the services are a part of your daily life. While we recognize the importance of the data centers, now is the time that we ensure that we have protection in place to safeguard our community. The first step to developing a plan, I would review the ordinance from other counties given the basis in comparison. One example, I would suggest that we review Prince George County, Maryland. An additional one, I would encourage Planning Department to identify 2 other local jurisdictions that already have something in place. The second step would be identify the appropriate areas for development, focusing on locations with lower population densities. The third is to require development that properly screens and substantial buffers and berms with setbacks for the appropriate distance. With this in mind, substations need to be located relatively close to the data centers to operate efficiently. However, to preserve the county's rural character, these data center facilities should be set back from public view whenever possible. It's also important to recognize that Dominion Energy also has the authority to acquire property throughout eminent domain when it is necessary. The first point of contact for data centers development is often through Dominion Energy. Again, remember, Dominion Energy has the authority of eminent domain, which reinforces the need to have clear ordinances in place. The protection ensures the county is prepared and not reacting to the afterfact. This is just a tip of the iceberg. I support the effort to research and develop the ordinance. It will be not created overnight. I would suggest that the Planning Commission hold separate meetings to further discuss this matter. So,
I know you have another item there, but would you please provide that statement there to Mr. Ryder so he can make it part of the minutes, please?
yes, I'll
Thank
be more
you.
than happy to. All right, so this is the other section I want to read to you. In the absence of an adoption ordinance, applications for these types of facilities may be submitted for virtually any location within our county, including nearby residential subdivisions. This could result in transmission towers, substations, and other infrastructures that the site is close proximity to homes. Under such circumstances, denial of an application would require a legal defensible ground. Opposition alone would not constitute significant reasons for denial. Controversially, adoption of an ordinance would provide the county with greater control over the siting of these facilities. It would also allow the county to designate more appropriate locations, such as possibly the Barronville area, where the transmission infrastructure is already present. Additionally, the ordinance could establish stricter setback requirements and other applicable standards to better protect the surrounding properties and to promote more consistent and predictable development. I'm not here this evening to advocate for or against this ordinance review. A significant amount of information has been provided by social media, has been presented, and some of it may have been inaccurate or incomplete. My intent is to assist the public in gaining a clearer understanding of the circumstances and challenges that are currently facing this county. Without an ordinance in place, there are limited guidelines governing these facilities where they can be located. With an ordinance, the county could have a clearer standard, a greater authority to guide their placement. Therefore, the question before us tonight would be whether we wish to review the ordinance or provide structure and direction or proceed with formal guidelines and accept the uncertain company that will approach. Please bear in mind that the decisions made by this board, as well as any other boards involved, are not made lightly. We recognize that all individuals will agree with the outcome, will also disagree. Our responsibility is to make the best decision possible in the interest of both our citizens and the county of New Kent as a whole. I respectfully ask for your assistance to consider both sides of this issue. Please share your perspectives, including the advantages and the disadvantages, so that this commission may make a well-informed and balanced decision based on constructive and meaningful input. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Towns. Again, if you would present that document to Ryder so it can be made part of the minutes. And thank you for your comments.
Could I ask a question?
If I may, sir, let's finish with this and then we can come back to that. Yes, Reverend Hathaway.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Mr. LaRochelle. I had not seen a data center, and I've looked at the pros and cons of it, but actually did not have a clue what it really looked like. And so that was really helpful to be able to see it and to be, in particular on the outside, to be able to hear the noise and those kinds of things. That was very helpful, so I appreciate that. I agree with Ms. Townsend that we've got to, I think we have to really look at what kinds of procedures we want to have in place in the event a data center comes. I've talked to a counterpart in a locality that had no procedures, and it was a nightmare for them. Now, the code is not clear, but the courts have interpreted for every legal use, there must be a place in the county where that use can exist. And so for us to think that we can simply say no data centers, that's ridiculous. We would end up in court defending something that's not really defensible. So I think we really need to look at it. I think the overlay district gives us the best opportunity. I certainly want to have as much county input in that process as possible, but to not do anything, I think it would be a nightmare. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Hathaway. Dr. Schmidt.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Davis.
Firstly, I thank Ms. Townsend for those comments. I think they're very appropriate and spot on at this point. I do regret missing the field trip, as it were, the other day. I apologize for not being able to attend. And I guess I'll say in advance I will not be at the next meeting. This will be, I think, the first meeting I'll miss in 6+ years or since I've been on the commission. So I apologize for that. But,
We'll see you again.
my wife and I will be out of town celebrating our 40th anniversary. So.
Looking at a data center? No, I'm sure. Not. Ms. Rose.
Nothing really at this time. Okay. I would like to thank Ms. Townsend for her comments. I think they're, as Mr. Davis said, spot on. I'm very, very much concerned with us not having something in place because the data centers are moving in like a freight train. So, and I would be more than happy to have some additional meetings, work sessions to talk about the issue.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Mr. LaRochelle. Yes, sir.
Ms. Townsend, thank you. Ms. Townsend, were both those letters from you, or did you say one you had received?
Yeah, one of them I was submitting, one of them I was going to submit to y'all as the first one I read was basically to the board, kind of getting my thoughts together for our field trip, because I had a lot of thoughts on paper, and I wanted to get them down before I forget them, and then just to try to get a couple of points in there as to how I want to safeguard some things. And then the second one, I felt I've had some concern with social media about only half of the stories maybe getting out there. Not, you see all the negativity, but you see no positivity. So this point, I wanted to make sure that we need to do a better job of making sure that we say, while we're doing this, I mean, we're not doing this to say we want data centers. We're doing this to protect the county and to preserve our rural character.
Thank you.
That concludes the commissioner's report. Staff reports is next on the agenda. And which one of the two of you are going to volunteer, or both?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Josh Rodney, Director of Development. Just wanted to provide you with an update on the zoning and subdivision ordinance rewrite process. That is separate from the data center conversation. This is taking a comprehensive look at our existing ordinances to see inconsistencies, vague language, better formatting, make it more understandable for everyday citizens to read and understand. That project is starting to pick up steam. You'll start seeing some information probably in the coming weeks about pop-up events. There's going to be 2 in May, one on the 16th and one on the 30th. Both of those will be at the farmers market from 9 to 12, standard farmers market time. And that will just be kind of an introduction to the project, potentially some tabletop activities to start gaining some insight from the citizens. Additionally, we will have the community engagement open house on May 20th at New Kent Middle School from 6 to 7:30 in the evening. That is in person. Again, short presentation, planning for a kind of zoning 101 overview of what zoning is and how it affects the county and guides growth in the county, along with tabletop exercises and some vision boards and things like that. There will also be a virtual community engagement open house on June 2nd from 6 to 7:30. I believe the plan right now is to have a sign-up sheet online for that, so that way we can email the virtual meeting link to those participants. Additionally, we'll have a joint work session with the Planning Commission and the board at the end of June. I believe that's scheduled for June 29th at 9 a.m. And then staff will take the consultant, Berkeley Group, around the county for a county tour to look at various aspects of the county. So that's kind of the update right now. You'll start seeing that information be pushed out on the county website, social media. We'll probably do flyers for some of the larger community engagement events, but we're looking forward to getting started on that process.
Thank you, Mr. Aragi.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question. When we did the comprehensive plan, once it was completed, we had the joint meeting with the board and the planning commission. I would like, if at all possible, for the planning commission to have a separate, before we have the joint. I think it's too much information to try to digest at one setting for over maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours. If we could have a separate one to look at it first and then have the joint one, I think that would be helpful.
I would agree.
So I believe the intent of the consultant and how we've scoped the project is you will actually see this in kind of sections. You'll see it as we go along, new formatting, new language. Because of that reason, it is a lot to digest. It ends up being a long document if we were to review it all at once and try and do it in one sitting. So as we move along and finish different parts of, like the administration of the code versus the actual, development standards and things like that, we'll pass those out for review, comment. We can talk about them in meetings, but it won't be a all at once approach.
All right. So will the planning commission get to see it separately before that joint meeting?
Before the end joint work session, yes. The joint work session that's scheduled for June is the official joint kickoff meeting.
Okay.
So as we move forward, you'll see different sections as we move through the process.
Ms. Townsend?
Yes, I would like to volunteer my services if you need any additional help or extra set of eyes, because I do have a very strong interest in certain parts of the codes to be rewritten.
Would that be landscaping?
Landscaping and buffers?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And the plan is for the Planning Commission, you'll get these sections ahead of any meetings that we have. So y'all will have ample time to review on your own, and then we can discuss changes or anything like that. So,
Any other questions for Mr. Raggi? Thank you. Mr. Silva, did you have anything for us? Thank you. Well, 6:30 approaches, but it's not here yet, so we cannot commence the public hearings until that time. If you are planning to speak at the public hearings, please sign up towards the front door. There are two separate lists, one for item 1 and one for item 2. We will be using that list to call people to the podium at that time. Until such time, I'm going to call the Planning Commission meeting in recess until 6:30. Talk among yourselves. It's 6:30, so I will reconvene the Planning Commission meeting for April 20th, 2026 now. I will now turn the floor over to Ms. Rose, the public hearing chairperson, for commencement of tonight's public hearings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, we have two public hearings before us. Each has been properly advertised for tonight's consideration. Let me take a moment to review the procedures that we will use for tonight's hearings. Each public hearing will be considered separately. Staff will give a brief overview of the hearing that is before us. The sponsor of the case will be given an opportunity to make a presentation. Commissioners will be given an opportunity to ask questions of the sponsors or staff for clarification purposes. I will then open the citizens' comment portion of the public hearing and receive your comments. Sign-up sheets are located on the desk by the front doors of the admin building. I ask the following. You come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, address your comments to the commission, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. When the timer sounds, please conclude your remarks. I'll now open for consideration CUP-01-26 Plancarte event venue.
Test. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Rose, and good evening, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, my name is Patrick Silva, Principal Planner with the Department of Community Development's Planning Division. And as mentioned, the first docket item I'll be presenting for your consideration this evening is a conditional use permit submitted by William Feltz on behalf of applicant Anatolio Fernandez Plancarte. There we go. For a proposed assembly hall event venue use on a 48.5 acre parcel located at 17701 Polish Town Road. Pursuant to the New Kent County Code, this use does require a conditional use permit in order to operate within the A1 agricultural zoning designation. Just to provide a little context first, the subject site can be seen here highlighted in yellow along Polish Town Road. Just north of Route 30 and just east of the jail there. So to provide a brief overview of the proposed use, the applicant is seeking approval of the use primarily intending to utilize the site to host intimate events, including weddings, birthday parties, and corporate events for a maximum of 200 attendees at any one time. The proposed events would take place within a proposed 10,000 square foot event space located at the subject site, which would require subsequent site plan submission and approval. All parking is proposed to be provided on site within a proposed 50 space gravel parking lot. As a sort of quick note with respect to process, in order to comply with the accessory structure regulations of the New Kent County Code, the applicant would be required prior to commencing operations for the use to execute a subdivision in order to create a new lot for the proposed use to be established on. The reason for that is there is an existing structure at the site, as can be seen right here. The way our accessory structure regulations work for the A1 zoning designation is that you're permitted to have a maximum of 10,000 square feet of accessory building. This structure does already have a number of accessory buildings in existence in relation to it. And obviously a 10,000 square foot event venue at the site would push it over what it would otherwise be permitted to have. So instead, a subdivision would be executed in order to establish the use on its own distinct parcel. Just a little bit of additional context with respect to the concept plan that has been submitted. Again, this is just a concept plan. A formal site plan would have to be submitted to the county, reviewed and approved prior to construction of the building and commencement of the use. But just to give you a sense of how the site would be proposed to lay out, would be proposed to be laid out. There would be a shared access with an adjacent property also owned by the applicant through that site into the subject site. You can see a kind of zoomed up image of the concept plan for the parking lot and the actual event venue here on the right. So again, it is a 10,000 square foot building here with its own 50 space gravel parking lot and a turnaround located in front of the building there. So generally, staff is supportive of the CUP request, but I would like to highlight a number of comments noted during our interdepartmental review of the proposal. It's not only us in planning who look at these requests. It's everyone from the environmental division to VDOT to the building official and everyone in between. So with respect to environmental considerations, the county's environmental manager has stated that based on the current concept proposal, a wetland permit approval would have to be submitted to the environmental division prior to the issuance of a land disturbance permit for site work. As areas where a wetland permit would be required would be related to the proposed installation of a sediment forebay and the construction of the principal spillway and outlet measure on the downstream side of the existing pond, which is at the site's dam. In addition, a Ches Bay exception would be required for the retrofit of a principal spillway on the southern terminus of the old farm pond, as the pond's dam lays within an RPA buffer and disturbance within a buffer is regulated, requiring a Ches Bay exception. In addition, our building official noted that assembly use buildings over 5,000 square feet in floor area do require fire sprinkler systems unless fire areas are introduced during the construction plans. So this is a special consideration that staff will ensure is accounted for at the site plan submission stage. On traffic and transportation, VDOT in their review of the proposed use noted that the proposed use based on the anticipated traffic generation would require a moderate volume commercial entrance, but ultimately more kind of conclusive trip generation data would be provided at the site plan submission stage in order to confirm this. In addition, they have also asked that a recorded agreement to share use of the entrance, as I mentioned, this would kind of be a shared use entrance for the existing commercial business here, as well as the event venue, would be recorded in order to stipulate the shared use conditions and maintenance of the entrance, and that would be submitted to VDOT directly. Last but not least, in order to minimize the potential for any negative impact stemming from the use's operation, planning staff has included a number of conditions of approval which work to regulate elements like hours of operation, maximum attendee volume, site maintenance and cleanliness standards, and noise. In addition, as you may be familiar with seeing in previous CUP submissions, as a means to ensure the use commences operations in short order and is not kind of, we don't have a CUP kind of approval hanging out in the balance, we have added a condition you might used to be seeing, which kind of sets a sunset clause for the CUP approval, requiring that this conditional use permit will expire on the 5th anniversary of its approval if a certificate of occupancy has not been issued for the building. So with all of those aforementioned considerations in mind and subject to the conditions of approval outlined within the staff report you've received, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit request. I did also want to take a moment to note that Mr. Feltz is in attendance this evening, representing the applicant in this CUP request in case the commission has any questions for him. So I will stop there and welcome any questions you might have for me as staff or Mr. Feltz.
Mrs. Flint?
The designation of zoning, is it A1?
Yes, this is an A1 zone property, so an event venue does require a CUP approval in order to operate in that zoning designation. That's correct.
And I see the EO is on both sides of the road. Are they by the same ownership, or is that two separate?
So the only additional parcel that is owned by the owner of the subject property would be this industrially zoned parcel seen right here, through which the shared access would be proposed to be provided. But you're correct, this is kind of a hodgepodge of zoning in this area of the county.
And is this a road access from the upper part? What road is that?
So that's Polish Town Road that it would be proposed to access from. Yep. And again, VDOT would require that moderate volume commercial entrance based on the projected traffic generation.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair. So I noticed the site is proposed to be served by private well and septic systems. Has been worked out whether that public water will be coming to serve a sprinkler system on the site, and also are there proposed fire hydrants?
That is a good question. I don't believe that public water would be anticipated to feed the sprinkler system. We did not receive any comments from the fire department as part of their review of this application, necessarily expressing a preference at the CUP stage. Obviously, they'll be provided the site plan submittal as well. They do kind of typically provide their more fire code, building code related comments at that stage. I'm not sure if Mr. Feltz has had any additional conversations with them with respect to that.
I haven't. I would imagine that they would probably break that building up into fire areas smaller than the 5,000 square foot. Obviously, there's a farm pond that we're going to be using for stormwater that's there. I would recommend they put some type of dry hydrant or something in it. Would definitely benefit the area because I don't think there's any public utilities.
There's fire hydrants serving the jail there, right?
Yes, not in front of our site.
Yeah, maybe not immediately in front of it,
correct.
but I don't know what the distance requirement is from established water when you have to tie into it. But yeah, so unless you can separate that building, which if you have to cut it up for an event venue, I don't know how that would work. If you want open space.
Agreed.
So anyway, those are just observations.
Madam Chair. Mr. Silva and the applicant, sir, I go from experience. Maximum number of attendees is 250 spaces. That idealizes 4 occupants per vehicle, which I think is ambitious in a venue like this. I think you'll probably average somewhere around 2.5 to 3, but not 4. So it would be my recommendation that you're probably going to need some additional parking, and if not immediately, in the very near future, just to accommodate the guests expected to arrive at the site. So my suggestion is that there be more parking.
Understood. 2 things I would kind of mention in relation to that. One, that would be, the sort of 1 to 4 for an assembly hall use is consistent with the parking requirements as codified in our zoning ordinance, and we have applied similar conditions to event venues with respect to parking requirements in the past that have seemingly worked pretty well. The other thing I will note is that the parking lot, in terms of the total volume of off-street spaces as is right now, is kind of right on the threshold of when sort of additional design standards come into play. When you get beyond 50 spaces, you then do get into the requirement for sort of asphalt or concrete paving.
Understood. And my drive is not there. My drive is just to make sure there's accommodations for the parking, for the intended guests to be there.
Understood.
ITE, I believe, provides some kind of parking outline. I don't know if that was referenced, but my general opinion and my experience tells me that it's idealized at 1 to 4, but the truth is people like to be independent and drive 2 or 3 people to a car, not 4.
Understood.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Hearing none, we'll move to the public comment portion. Let the record show there is no one signed up to speak for this public hearing. Therefore, I will close the public hearing and turn it back over to the chairman.
Thank you. Discussion. Any other discussion with regards to this application? Commissioners?
Yeah.
Yes, Reverend Hathaway.
Thank you. Under the conditions, outdoor components of the use must not be operated after 9 p.m. or before 8 a.m. What are the outdoor components?
So in the event that there is sort of like any, outdoor temporary tents, or, it's common that there might be mingling of guests outside of the event venue itself as part of normal event operations. in an effort to be sensitive to the quiet hours of our noise code as codified in the county zoning ordinance, we would want to ensure that those activities begin to wind down as we approach 10 p.m.
But doesn't it say all activities will be inside the 10,000 square foot?
So as part of their narrative statement submitted to us, they didn't necessarily indicate that there was a substantial outdoor component. We didn't necessarily condition that absolutely all activities have to take place within that building. So, in the event to be kind of flexible, or with the intention of trying to be flexible within reason, we did kind of leave that open-ended, but wanted to ensure that we were addressing potentially any noise impacts that may result around quiet hours. Yes, sir.
Any more questions or discussion? Being none, I will entertain a motion.
I will make one. In order to address, protect, and promote public convenience, necessity, general welfare, and good zoning practices in the county, I move to adopt resolution number PC-04-26 to forward application CUP-01-2026 to the New Kent County Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation. I further move that the Planning Commission finds this project to be in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. The motion is to recommend approval of the conditional use permit. Mr. Ryder, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Townsend,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Ms. Thomas,
Aye.
Mr. La Rochelle,
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Ms. Rose,
Aye.
Reverend Hathaway,
Aye.
Mr. Bennett.
Aye. The motion passes. This will appear before the next Board of Supervisors meeting scheduled for when, Seth? May. Early May. Okay, let's like May 11th? Okay, May 11th. So we'll now move on to our second public hearing. Ms. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I will now open public hearing for consideration of CUP-02-26 Bellington Hideaway. Mr. Silva?
It's me again. The second and final item I will be presenting for consideration your evening is for your consideration this evening is, as mentioned, another conditional use permit. This time submitted by Katrina and Jason Whitehead for, if I can get this next slide down, there we go, for a proposed campground use as a home occupation on a 15-acre parcel located at 7850 Old Roxbury Road, which pursuant to the New Kent County Code requires a conditional use permit in order to operate beyond the limits of intensification for home occupations otherwise allowed by the zoning ordinance. To give you some locational context, this is the subject site in question located on Old Roxbury. A brief overview and background for the proposed use. The applicant is intending to operate the use as an immersive homestead experience at the property at which they reside. This is proposed to include a farm stay component to include 4 high-quality canvas tent sites located in the wooded area to the rear of the applicant's active sheep farm, in which guests would have the ability to stay overnight on a short-term basis, not to include long-term accommodations. On-site parking for guests would be accommodated within a 8-space gravel parking area located entirely on-site. In addition to the 4 campsites, additional site improvements would include a bathhouse for use by guests. Also, the use would be subject to Virginia Department of Health campground regulations and would receive annual inspections from the Virginia Department of Health in order to ensure compliance. One thing I would want to mention, as you all have received over the last couple weeks, staff has received and forwarded along to you a number of public comment letters, which have communicated concerns relating to potential impacts stemming from the proposed use, including things mentioned in the letters like potential environmental impacts, the possible expansion of the use beyond what's currently proposed, increased traffic, erosion of the character and serenity of the area, and possible issues related to patrons' inadvertent trespassing on neighboring properties. Staff is certainly sensitive to these concerns and has taken them into consideration and responded by adding conditions of approval intended to mitigate any potential issues related to these topic areas. We as staff are of the opinion that the combination of the low-intensity scale of the proposed use and the proposed conditions of approval with this report will sufficiently work to address the concerns expressed in those letters. Indeed, staff is generally supportive of the CUP request, but I would like to take a moment to highlight a number of important reviewer considerations. Before I do that, I would kind of just want to point out, this was this sort of high-level context view of the property itself. This is a little bit more of a zoomed-in detail of the property. You kind of have a bird's-eye view, macro-level view here, and then on the right, you kind of have a closer view that shows where the various site improvements and campsites would be proposed to be laid out. So as you can see, the 4 tent sites would be in the wooded area to the rear of the applicant's home on the property. So, to address some of the staff analysis, with respect to our environmental manager's considerations, it was stated that based on the concept plan provided, total land disturbance for this project appears to be less than 1 acre, and as such, a state stormwater management plan and permitting would not be required at this time. However, an erosion and sediment control plan approval may be required if triggered by proposed site improvements and clearing. With respect to Virginia Department of Health considerations, the Virginia Department of Health reviewer who gets these CUP requests noted that a wastewater characterization study, which works to analyze the composition of waste streams, namely the septic system, septic disposal on the site, to determine the necessary treatment processes and design parameters must be conducted by a licensed engineer prior to the use commencing operations. Finally, in order to minimize the potential for any negative impacts stemming from the use's operation in response to comments received from residents, planning staff has included a number of conditions of approval which work to regulate elements like the maximum number of campsites permitted. So there is a condition in the resolution before you this evening that would max the number of campsites out at 4. So if the CUP were to be recommended for approval as is, any additional campsites beyond 4 would have to come back to the Planning Commission and Boards of Supervisors for a CUP amendment and approval. In addition, we have also added a condition stipulating a maximum duration of stay for guests, added the requirement for site maintenance and cleanliness standards, ensuring that adequate parking availability is provided entirely on site, requiring minimum proximity to and screening from adjacent properties, a condition requiring compliance with Virginia Department of Health requirements, as well as a condition requiring that signage be posted on the property boundaries, which clearly demarcates those boundaries for guests to eliminate as much as possible the possibility of inadvertent trespassing or anything like that. So with those considerations in mind and subject to those conditions of approval outlined in the staff report and resolution before you, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit request. I did also want to take a moment to note that Mr. and Mrs. Whitehead are in attendance this evening as the applicants in the CUP request, and would like to tell you a little bit more about the request from their side of things, and in case the commission has any questions for them. So I will turn things over to you all now in case you kind of wanted to speak to things from the applicant side.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak with you all this evening. My name is Jason Whitehead. My wife Katrina and I own Bellington Farm on Old Roxbury Road, where we live with our 2 children and Katrina's parents. We are members of Providence United Methodist Church off Old Roxbury Road, and our family has been involved in scouting through PAC and Troop 562 with both of our sons for more than a decade. We purchased the property in 2011. At that point, it was really nothing more than a soybean field off Old Roxbury Road, and our intention was to build our lives there. Our goal has always been to keep the land in an agricultural use, as it has been for centuries, and to steward it responsibly rather than simply turning it into another house with a big lawn. According to the USDA Census of Agriculture, New Kent County lost 26 farms between 2017 and 2022, a nearly 20% decline in just 5 years. That trend is not unique to New Kent. Across Virginia, small farms are under increasing pressure from development and rising costs, and many are looking for ways to remain financially viable without selling or subdividing their land. In 2024, Bellington Farm became a federally recognized farm, one of the very few new farms established in New Kent County in recent years. And like many farms, we are exploring a modest agritourism operation as one way to support the land while keeping it intact. Agritourism is a significant and growing part of Virginia's economy. In 2017, Virginia Tech study estimated that 7.5 million visits to agritourism destinations occur across the state each year, generating $1.5 billion in economic activity. While that study is now several years old, that trend has only continued. Last week in Governor Spanberger's announcement regarding Virginia's strategic tourism plan, the key priorities highlighted and listed are to, quote, expand lodging, enhance outdoor recreation, and grow family-friendly attractions. The Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services continues to actively promote agritourism through its Virginia Grown program and regional initiatives, and more farms are relying on agritourism and other value-added experiences to remain financially valuable. Our proposal is intentionally small. We're requesting approval for 4 seasonal, reservation-based glamping sites with thoughtfully designed amenities located within the woodline of our property. These sites would operate on a seasonal basis, generally from early spring through late fall, so approximately April through October, with no overnight accommodations during the winter months. From the beginning, we have made efforts to engage with neighbors directly, including hosting 2 open farm evenings to invite questions and feedback, or just let folks come and see the baby animals, which we have a lot of right now. We hope for more engagement with our neighbors, yet only a few actually came over to meet with us and talk and ask questions. We have received the feedback that was sent to the county via email, and we have worked to clarify or amend our original proposal to address some of those concerns. This is not a conventional campground with RVs and trailers. It is not a venue. It is not a high traffic use. At full capacity, we would be hosting fewer than 16 guests. There are more people in this room tonight by far than we would have on any weekend. Fewer people, guests would typically arrive on a Sunday or Friday afternoon, stay for a weekend, spend their time enjoying the property or visiting local farms, wineries, and other businesses. One of the concerns expressed is about the amount of additional out-of-town traffic that this will add to Old Roxbury Road and the risk this will pose for pedestrians and children. As a comparison, on Waterside Drive and Rockahawk Road in Lenexa, where high daily and weekend traffic related to campgrounds and recreational day use already exists, in the research that I could find, there is no recorded pedestrian injuries or incidents from at least the last 10 years. Therefore, the data does not support the notion that this small operation would cause any additional noticeable traffic risk on Old Roxbury Road. Another concern expressed as the proposal references future expansion plans. We do anticipate that over time we may choose to expand availability, such as offering stays throughout the week rather than just weekends. But that's an operational change, not a physical expansion. The intent is to remain small, well-managed, and consistent with the scale presented here. The proposal is limited to 4 sites. That number is not arbitrary. It's tied to the physical constraints of the property, including the capacity of the project-specific design septic system and just the amount of land we have available. If we want to add more sites, we have to lose our farm, and that sort of defeats the whole purpose of the plan. Any expansion beyond what is proposed here, of course, would require going through the approval and process for amendment or a different updated conditional use permit, which we understand. We understand our neighbors take care deeply about protecting the peace and character of this area. We share those values. That's why we live there. This property is our home. These folks, our guests, will quite literally be in our backyard. Because of that, it is in our interest, more than anybody else, to make sure that it is operated in a way that is respectful and well managed. We recognize this is a rural area. Again, that's why we live there. And in this area, hunting is a long-standing and important activity, and we respect that. We take seriously our responsibility to educate and manage our guests, including clearly communicating property boundaries and setting expectations for behavior in a rural environment. At the same time, we expect that all individuals engaged in hunting activities are doing so safely and in accordance with the law, including being aware of property boundaries and what lies beyond them. We believe this is a matter of mutual responsibility in a rural setting. In addition to serving visitors to New Kent, this project does also have a local benefit. I mentioned our connection with scouting earlier. Our farm has occasionally served as a backup camping location for Boy Scout troops. We've also offered merit badges focused on animal science and geology. With the modest infrastructure associated with these sites, specifically the bathhouse, we would be able to satisfy Scouting America requirements for Cub Scout family camping by providing appropriate sanitary facilities and supervision. This would give more local youth the opportunity to spend time outdoors, connect with the land in a meaningful way, and experience agriculture as well. Compared to the many uses already permitted within A1 agricultural zoning, such as a large-scale pick-your-own operation, expanded livestock use, logging, this is a very low-impact activity and allows us to keep the majority of the property wooded, quiet, and undisturbed. Ultimately, our hope is to keep this land intact as a working farm, as it has been for centuries and for the long term, while sharing a very small part of it with visitors who appreciate the same rural character and agricultural heritage that makes New Kent County such a special place to live. We thank you for your time and your consideration.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question of the applicant? Mr. Chairman or Mr. Chairman?
I was going to go ahead and open it up to commissioner questions. So.
Okay, thank you. As you were referring to the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, is that additional camping? Because most Boy Scouts bring their own tents.
With Cub Scouts, it's family camping specifically, but they would bring their own tents. So this would be offered, between stays. We wouldn't have the Cub Scouts glamping. Kind of defeats
Those
the
tents
purpose.
are too nice for the Cub Scouts.
Yeah.
And to further clarify on that, we've had the Scouts out at our farm up to 20 or more individuals staying overnight. And as far as we're aware, there have never been any complaints of noise or other concerns voiced by our neighbors in those events.
So, and usually Cub Scouts, do their parents come with the children?
Yes, that family camping means the entire family is camping.
So that would be additional parking, plus the people that are camping in the other
Well,
campsites?
this wouldn't be taking place while the glamping is going on. So this would be, the idea, because there's a whole lot of the property in the back that's not considered as part of the glamping sites. Where we have done Boy Scout camping before, we've put patrols and scouts in the back before. With Cub Scout camping, the difference is we need to have those restroom facilities of some sort because they're family camping. And so the idea is with the infrastructure related to the bathhouse, it would allow us to be able to expand our offerings and when we could have Cub Scouts and other Boy Scouts in activity on the site.
And we do have substantial additional parking that associated with our residences that would be available to folks like the Scouts. That would not be a part of our business operations. The Scouts would not be charged. This is just an additional way that we can serve the community. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Thank you. With you, I'd like to ask Mr. Silva, and has this been addressed with your department?
It's an interesting question. The campground use as a commercial activity is founded in people renting campground areas and paying the proprietor of the site. We might need to do a little bit of reconciling with the ordinance, but at a glance, I would say this sort of theoretically anybody could invite Cub Scouts to camp on their private property if it's operating outside the bounds of commercial activities. So if this were separate and distinct from the campground use, I don't think it would be regulated under the CUP approval, and therefore wasn't, substantially addressed as part of the narrative packet for that use request.
So do you feel that if the glamping, camping section is in progress, that the parking for their vehicles as well as the additional vehicles would all be accommodated?
I mean, without a great sense of exactly what the volume of those events would entail, it's hard to say. It would be, if I'm understanding your point correctly, it would certainly be within the purview of the commission to add an additional condition of approval requiring that those events, the sort of commercial component of the glamping activities not coincide with any instance of sort of community-based or Boy Scout-oriented camping. That could certainly be added as a condition of approval.
Madam Chair. This is a side note, Ms. Townsend, and many years ago on the family farm I grew up in New Kent, we did host a couple times scout camping as well. Obviously, it wasn't a commercial venture. It was just an opportunity for really kids from Newport News to come up and see what the country was like. So and we had no issues at the time, but I'm talking 50 years ago or more.
Well, I'm just concerned, you say that only, was it possibly 8 vehicles? But then now you've got a possibility that could be 8 vehicles plus Cub Scouts all coming at the same time. So we're talking more vehicles at one time.
Certainly the point's well taken, and if the interest of ensuring that there weren't cumulative impacts relating from the two coinciding, there could certainly be a condition of approval adding that not be the case, be prohibited from being the case, should the commission like to do so.
Madam Chair? Yes. And for the applicants, and as far as the clearing that's involved, I'm assuming it's just for the immediate camping areas?
There are existing natural clearings within the woods that we're taking advantage of. So we had an extremely large oak tree come down, for example, that in the process of cutting up created a wonderful campsite. So we anticipate cutting down virtually no trees down. Maybe one. But that would be about it. So very, very little land clearing within the woods. We want to keep that environment intact.
Right. And to contrast that, I mean, by right, you could probably cut almost every tree down if you chose to do so.
We have more than 5 acres of very valuable timberland back there that we could, you are correct, choose to forest by right.
Right.
But that would, we live here because we love that environment. We love our community. We love our property. We had the honor of hosting some of the Planning Commission at our house for the farm nights, and I think that I would like to think that they also saw the extreme care we take over our environment and over our property.
And leading into the agritourism aspect of it, so I guess is it your intent to tie in packages per se, I guess? I mean, or the agritourism is a part of the camping experience inherently involved or a part of it.
Yes, and within the packet that we provided to you, we wanted to give you some other visuals of what our experience might look like to give you a feel for some of the things that you could do while on our property. And that would include interacting with animals. We'll make our schedules over the weekend available to guests. They can participate in any activity on the farm that we are already undertaking. So that might be picking strawberries and then making jam. It feels like hundreds of jars over the span of a summer. It could be making bread together. It could be feeding the chickens. It could be feeding our bottle lambs. So plenty of activities like that are all very closely related to our experiences as, we can call it homesteaders, as well as historic preservation. Which my husband has a deep experience with as well. So having opportunities like that to interact, as well as our plan would be to collaborate with some of the existing wineries in New Kent County to see and other farmers, which we have a relationship with, to see what opportunities we can create for experiences within the county that continue to deepen the agritourism aspect of the project.
And do you currently, as far as do you sell products or anything as far as what you're doing as from the farm itself? And you
yes,
operate
sir.
as a commercial business too?
Right now, we are a federally recognized farm. We have a business license. I pay pay farm taxes every year. Right now, we sell live animals, including lambs, goats, goslings, ducklings, chicks, as well as eggs. The eggs is a fairly recent venture. And that reminds me I need to submit my our farm business license before the end of the month.
And our sheep tax.
And our sheep taxes. 50 cents a sheep. The Virginia government's going to get their share.
Thank you, Ms. Chair.
First, I want to thank you for educating me. I had never heard of glamping, and I wasn't sure ChatGPT had either because it took so long to get an answer back. But are there any glamping sites anywhere around?
The closest operation that is even remotely similar to our plan is at Chickahominy Riverfront Park, where they have a few safari-style tents. It's a different experience than what we will be offering. I believe they charge about $200 a night to stay in one of those tents. We have had the opportunity during sort of market research to stay in a few other glamp grounds, including one up in West Virginia. And there's a lot of different brands and flavors of what glamping is. But in the end, the folks that want to go glamping are the ones that want to say they went camping over the weekend, but they do not want to sleep on the floor or on the ground. They want to have that outside experience, but they'd also like a noise machine to keep out the sound of the chickens at night. These are not hardcore campers. They're looking to sleep in a comfy bed overnight. And that's what we will offer to them.
Thank you. I'm sensitive to the loss of farms. We've lost so many, so appreciate that.
I'm trying to address the issues from the letters that have been submitted to us from the citizens of some concerns. And the one was the campfires, which I would sort of like to, if I could, Mr. Davis.
Yeah, that's you.
Could you address some of the campfire issues and concerns, and then possibly Mr. Silva can give us a final update on what's necessary?
I'll try to handle this. So my day job, I am a fire marshal, not in New Kent County, but the state law is the same. There can be local amendments to the statewide fire prevention code, and I'm not intimately familiar with what New Kent has done as far as any amendments to the code. So fire regulations are quite convoluted in general to begin with, but it is regulated. It's heavily regulated in the state. And I guess as an observation from one of your images, it shows the fire ring. So if we were to follow the fire code based on pure technical merit, the fire itself is a recreational fire, which kind of makes sense what the use is or intended use is. It's not for disposal purposes. It's not for burning trash, so on and so forth. It's for, again, sitting around and enjoying the evening or cooking hot dogs or marshmallows. So it's clearly a recreational fire. Recreational fires in the fire code require a 25-foot distance from buildings and other combustible items. So by the image, it looks a little close to me, but again, I'm not here to do
the limits of my ChatGPT rendering capabilities. Yes,
right.
Sir.
So, there's quite a bit of, as far as regulations that I know, and I am a camper, and I do own a camper, so I don't know if I call myself a glamper, but we do have all the niceties in the camper. But so we do frequent campgrounds all over the country, and most are very similar in as far as the rules and regulations, quiet times, again, what to do with your fires, what you can or can't do at your campsite and things like that, from hanging your clothes out to doing whatever. So it's usually a very long laundry list of, and of course, as responsible campers, we go down the list, what can we do, what we can't do, and certainly we abide by all rules, in which the majority of campers do, and hopefully the clientele that you have will be respectful, obviously, of your property as well as others. And because I know myself, and I hope I'm not the exception. I hope I am the rule that when we go on trails around campgrounds, that I do respect other people's property rights, and I will not go elsewhere. But getting off the topic a little bit, Ms. Townsend wanted me to speak to. So the fire regulations, again, are certainly enforceable. The recreational fire is the distance. I remember reading comments about burn bans. If it's a drought condition or a burn ban, full ban, then as a fire marshal, I would not allow, obviously, campfires during a drought or burn ban. We don't get those very frequently, but we can. And
We're under one right now, sir.
So and that has to be communicated to not just campgrounds, but the entire community. So we do spend a fair bit of time chasing down, in the department I work for, chasing down illegal fires or educating people on what you can or can't burn, because it does vary a little bit with the localities. So it is highly regulated, and certainly I know, I expect that these rules will be incorporated or indoctrinated in your rules when you give them to your campers. The other big thing with the open fires, the attendants, they have to be attended at all times while they're burning. And so obviously if you're there and your campers are not there, then obviously that would need to be addressed, as we don't want to leave any unattended fires. And other parts of it is currently Virginia has a spring burn law, which is in effect February 15th or April 30th. It's soon ending, where you can burn after 4 p.m. between 4 p.m. and midnight. So we're constantly chasing down people who are, again, burning before the 4 o'clock hour, and most of the time not realizing it, but because they've come from somewhere else, and so we have to educate them. So anyway, that's a little bit about my knowledge as far as the fire code enforcement. And again, these provisions could be enforced by the local fire marshal.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. I appreciate that. And Mr. Silver, do you feel confident that there is enough control on the open campfires?
I would say so. And to Mr. Davis's point, with respect to proximity of the fire pits to combustible materials and all the sort of general fire code things that might apply to a campground would also apply to a single family residence. If the commission were to want to add an additional condition that would require something like, let's say, a fire marshal inspection prior to the use commencing operation, so they could see how the site has been laid out and ensure that it's meeting all of those general requirements, that's certainly something that could happen, just to ensure that, all that is kind of being addressed up front with respect to fire pit proximity to the structures, et cetera.
Would that not be reviewed during the site plan process? Not specifically in the
Campfires can move, between.
Well, I'm talking about the fire ring.
Well, those can be individually moved very easily. It's not a problem.
Yeah, with respect to something that would not necessarily be a permanent improvement, maybe not so much. But again, with the intention of ensuring they have been laid out properly, again, an inspection condition could certainly be added to the CUP approval.
Well, obviously, I think that'd certainly be appropriate, in my opinion, too.
Well, I feel, too, that it would address some of the concerns that we have with the other citizens that wrote these letters on behalf of the campsite. So I would be very comfortable with that happening.
So YouTube can hear you.
We would also be very comfortable with that. You probably read a letter from one of our neighbors and in fact, a few of our commissioners were here during that conversation. They asked some questions about the campfires and how we were going to protect our surroundings, and my admittedly flippant response was we would burn down first. But the reality is it is in our backyard. We want to be extremely safe. So whether that means a fire marshal inspection, we would welcome that. I will also point out that the Department of Health inspects campgrounds annually and includes among their regulations a good bit of language around fire safety. So it wouldn't be just the one time that we would be inspected. It would be every single year that someone would be coming out to make sure that we were compliant with all of those regulations. So I believe we do have a plan in place to ensure safety. I am not going to put my home, my family, my animals at risk because of someone's negligence around fire. We will be very carefully monitoring the situation.
One last question, and I won't ask anymore, but will there be any alcohol on the areas when they're camping?
I don't know that that's something that we've necessarily fully thought out yet. That's not a part of our plan one way or another, but we can certainly address that as a part of the plan if there is interest. As far as I've not heard of any campgrounds that do a great deal to regulate alcoholic beverages as long as they're responsibly contained and consumed on site. But again, we're open to having that discussion about what the right approach would be.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, a few questions. Mr. Silva, if you would, please. Reviewing the email from Mr. Jason Irvin.
Yes, sir.
He references code section 98-873, subsection D-1, which states, as I read his statement, clearly just states that a minimum of 20 acres is required for a campground. I did not research that, and maybe you could fulfill me, but I would presume if that would be the requirement, if this is the primary use of the property, or is there more to that's not written in that statement?
It's a two-part answer. Yes, the first part is yes, you are correct. The second part would be that section, so all of the performance standards listed under section 98-870 of the county code apply to uses that are proposed to take place within a business or manufacturing zone classification. So as an agriculturally zoned classification, the performance standards contained under that specific subsection, including those for this use group, would not be base requirements. As you all are likely well aware, we do often, as staff, call upon those performance standards to inform reasonable CUP conditions. And so, for example, we use similar verbiage from that section to stipulate maximum campsite density. Where the base requirement, for example, from that same campsite performance standard section permits no more than 8 sites per acre, we actually imposed a more restrictive condition. If you think about 4 campsites on a 15-acre property, that's no more than 1 campsite per every 3.75 acres. And we simply condition that no more than 4 campsites in 1 acre be established as the proposed density, as well as calling upon the minimum requirements for the dimensioning of those campsites. So I say that to highlight that we often will use those performance standards to inform CUP conditions, but in this case, those would not apply as base requirements for the CUP based on its zoning designation, the site zoning designation.
Yeah, thank you. With regards to some of the conditions, and if I missed it, please forgive me, but my current understanding is that with a conditional use permit, those conditions are established for the property.
Correct.
Okay. Could those conditions be established for the current property owner and not transferable to a future property owner?
That's a great question. The state does allow municipalities to do that. That has not typically been the standard of practice in New Kent County, but there is some condition verbiage that has been used in the past, acknowledging that the CUP is granted to the applicant only, or let's say a corporation in which they own a majority ownership, and cannot be granted to a different owner without approval of a transfer of ownership CUP or something like that.
Now, I'll let you address that question to me in just a second. My additional question is, again, we've been providing sunset clauses or sunset date lines for our conditional use permits in recent history.
Yes, sir.
But I did not see one apply here. It would seem like should be some kind of sunset clause, and I'll provide one that I think would be appropriate, that if the proposed use becomes non-operational for a period of 12 continuous months, then the conditional use permit expires. Basically, if you're not using as a campground those facilities for 12 continuous months, the permit goes away.
Is that a question for you, Mr. Bennett? Or?
So you're correct. We did not include a sunset clause, as was mentioned actually as being the case for the previous CUP. Typically, when we're most apt to include that as a condition is when there is the requirement for a formal site plan submission that gets full review and there's a certificate of occupancy issued to ensure that a use might not come back in 10 years down the line when building requirements or zoning requirements related to that site plan approval are completely different. But that being said, certainly a sunset clause as that you've described could be added to any CUP. I would ultimately defer to the applicant whether they thought that was a reasonable time frame or if that was something they were amenable to, but that's certainly within the purview of the commission.
Sure, and then so you can understand where I'm coming from. When I visited your property, I got a suggestion that we are still in the proofing of this as viable. And if it doesn't become viable, then maybe there should be, in my understanding, to me, that this opportunity should be relinquished so that maybe another property could do the same thing without having so many properties do the same thing and all of them failing. So that's my question, is if you think it is meaningful for you to have maybe this to be a 2-year period unused and then it expires, I'm fine with that. But I don't want to see the property have this condition allowed to it and just stand there and not be utilized with, as a yurt or campground facility too.
So I guess I would ask for some clarification, sir, which would be, are we talking about a period from the time in which, if I'm feeling optimistic, the Board of Supervisors approved the CUP, that we would have a period of time in which to commence operations, or are you speaking of a period after operations had commenced and at some point we ceased operations?
The second. The latter.
Okay. Good, because there's going to be a time period of construction, and you made me a little nervous with a really, really tight timeline to get all of the work done.
My idea is to give you a chance to proof yourself, okay? But you also, if it should not go in the way you think it should go, close the books, let somebody else have an opportunity.
I think in the exact conversation you and I were having, we made it clear that this may be a crazy idea, but if so, it's on us. We're the ones that are assuming all the financial liability for this exercise. We are comfortable with a limitation that says if there is a cessation of operations after we have opened the campground of some period, which we'd be happy to, I assume, take offline with Mr. Silva, that we would be content with a condition that would say that if we had ceased operations for a sufficient period of time, that our conditional use permit was no longer valid,
Yeah.
that would be fine.
And final question is, with the staff, was there any discussion on the limitation, the number of guests you would have in the glamping experience total? I know there's 4 utes. We discussed 4 possibly individuals in each ute, but was that a figure of just 4 times 4, or how did that get derived as to 16?
So we ultimately did not add a condition stipulating the maximum amount of specific campers at any one time to give flexibility to the fact, there could be a situation in which there is a family with 3 young kids, or there's a sort of variety of the amount of guests that could fit into a site, and we didn't want to be unnecessarily restrictive with the number of guests per se, and we felt that by limiting the actual number of actual tent sites, that would work to achieve the same effect. Okay. But of course, conditioning the maximum amount of guests at any one time is also something that's within the purview of the condition or the commission. We elected to just regulate the amount of maximum tent sites to achieve the same effect, while giving the applicant some flexibility with respect to the amount of guests.
Anything to add?
The only thing I would add is that, I know this appeared in some comments, at least on Facebook, there are no RVs. No one would be able to stay in an RV. We wouldn't be allowing accessory tents, so someone rents a tent and then sets up 4 of them around it. You're staying in one of our provided tents. Within the sort of capacity of that tent to accommodate a reasonable sized family, and those would be the only guests that would be permitted on that particular site. So I think, as Mr. Silva suggested, there is a very natural limit, given the size of the tents we're exploring and those other restrictions, that it's unlikely that we would exceed 16 guests at any given time.
Thank you. Appreciate
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead. Is there power run to the yurts?
We have not.
For comfort cooling?
There will be underground wiring run to the individual sites. That would be the only utility run to individual sites. And that work would be conducted by a licensed electrician and completely safe.
Subject to inspections.
Subject to electrical inspections, et cetera. The only permanent structure, the only permanent, let's say, structures at each campsite would be a deck on which the tent would be set up. Those tents would be put down during the winter for storage. So the power would be run to the deck using common outdoor electrical requirements. And then our plan was to install permanent, non-movable fire pits constructed out of masonry. So those would be the only permanent structures at each campsite. And then the common area would have the only other permanent structures. But yes, we want to make sure our guests are comfortable and have lighting.
Madam Chair, just one question, probably for Patrick. When it comes to the county lodging tax, because this isn't a fixed dwelling with a CO, will that apply to this form of campground?
There would definitely, ultimately I might have to double check with the Commissioner of Revenue. My understanding is there probably would be a separate business license for the campground component that would, to ensure that it's taxed correctly in association with that use tax. So in effect, yes, but I'm happy to double check and confirm that with the Commissioner of Revenue.
Thank you. One last question. And this is related to, I guess, the public safety, the aspect of hunting on the properties adjacent to your property. I know for the most part, I see just, I guess, signage that'll say no trespassing. That there isn't a requirement for fencing. Is that correct? At one point, I thought I read.
So there is a requirement for sort of, we do have a condition that asks that view either by landscaping. As it relates to the condition that you were mentioning, the way we've worked similar indicators at their property lines to the satisfaction of ensuring guests do not intrude upon adjacent properties. Really require that the property boundaries be fenced off. Adequately posted with signage that would ensure people don't inadvertently trespass on neighboring properties.
Okay. Is there something specific as far as how many feet between the signs, that type of thing? I just know people will like to wander, and
sure.
Your site is very, very narrow. It's long and narrow, so they could very easily walk onto your neighbor's property.
Sorry,
That's
Mr.
easily
Chair.
solved. One side has to be observable from the next. One sign has to be observable from the next. So if you see that sign, if you're standing in front, you should be able to see that sign and that sign. So that would be, we've done that effectively to prevent people from entering properties for construction sites. And basically, you've got three signs that are glaring in your eyes that you're imposing on adjacent properties.
Certainly, more specificity could be brought to that condition to that effect, or if the condition were or the commission were more amenable to a specific spacing in terms of feet, more specificity could certainly be brought to this condition.
Plus, the fencing would inhibit wildlife from traveling from one parcel to the other for the hunters.
Yeah.
And we'll be happy to, I mean, it is for our guest safety that we would want to restrict them from neighboring properties. So we all have the same interest, which is to keep folks where they belong. So if we decide there is a certain amount of spacing that's necessary, we'll be happy to comply. And I imagine that our current vision is probably in excess of whatever restriction you might want to put in that last condition.
Any other questions from the commissioners? I'll go ahead and open the public comment portion. All right, the first name is Kimberly Stubbs.
Hello, good evening. I'm Kim Stubbs, and I live at 9066, that's real close, Woods Edge Drive. Thank you to the Planning Commission for allowing me time to speak. I'm here to speak on behalf of Jason and Katrina Whitehead and their application for a conditional use permit to operate a campground. I have known Jason and Katrina for a few years. I have a child in Scouting America, and Jason and Katrina have been very active in the troop for many years, and were very active in the Cub Scout pack before that. Katrina is actually the Scouting America troop treasurer for Troop 562, and Jason is one of the registered adults that help coordinate many of their camping trips. The Whiteheads are not here to ruin New Kent County. Quite the opposite. They are here to preserve our rural community. They want to have a place where a few people a weekend can come and enjoy New Kent County and all it has to offer. Their guests will not be bringing their own tents or trailers or RVs. I don't camp. I just want to put that out there. I don't camp. I don't do the on the ground sleeping. So they are going to be, their guests are going to be arriving like any of us would be arriving at an Airbnb with clothes for the weekend and a toothbrush. They will have the opportunity to experience the Bellington hideaway version of farm living, petting some farm animals, and making some jams. They will also have the opportunity to visit one or all of our wonderful wineries, one or all of our restaurants, and maybe spend some time and money at Rosie's. Bringing in a few extra people every weekend to enjoy our beautiful county is beneficial because of the revenue they would bring. People who would not have a place to stay in New Kent will now be able to come and spend time here and experience New Kent life from Friday evening to Sunday afternoon. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Summer Craver.
Summer Craver. I am here with my husband, Eric Craver. We live at 4580 Marcella Lane. I will start by addressing a violation of due process that occurred this morning when a supervisor sent me a private ex parte communication to influence my public testimony and opinion. By using a private message to lobby for this campground and explain how other farms, such as Old Tavern Farms, like to hold events to show off the lifestyle, he is attempting to convince me that it is normal for farms to have campgrounds. This supervisor has bypassed the legal requirement of transparency and compromised the integrity of the board's judicial role. Land use decisions must be made based solely on the public record, not through backdoor influence that evades community scrutiny. This attempt to shape the narrative in the shadows of an inbox in an effort to accountability every resident of New Kent County deserves. I would like to address you and tell you that weekend events are daily events attended by locals on an 84-acre farm are not a comparison to a campground crammed onto 9 acres with constant out-of-town guest turnover. I'm here to remind the board that the New Kent County zoning ordinance explicitly established the A1 agricultural district to protect and preserve woodlands and agricultural lands from premature or unnecessary development, more intense land uses. The municipal code for New Kent County standards for campgrounds and campsites, section 98-873, section D, also clearly states the minimum acreage for a campground in this county is 20 acres. Bellington Farms is only on 15 total acres, with 6 of those already being used established with 2 occupied residential homes and several barns and livestock pastures. This leaves 9 acres for this facility. I would also like to note that the bathhouse does not have the required 100-foot buffer that New Kent requires. Approving a campground in an A1 zone will set a precedent for further non-agricultural development, weakening the protections that keep rural areas intact and sustainable for future generations. When we purchased our properties, we did so based on a zoning promise that this land would remain rural and free of larger commercial non-agricultural ventures. At our district town hall meeting, Mr. Ron Hathaway, not Reverend, himself stated he understood my concerns because he would not want to live next door to this. If a representative of this county recognizes that this project is an undesirable neighbor, then the board cannot, in good conscience, impose this commercial venture on the neighbors of Bellington Farms. The residents invested here to be away from commercial encroachment. This development not only exploits the land.
I'm sorry, that's the 3 minutes.
Is that the 3?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll email you the rest.
Amy Wykant.
It's Amy Wiegarts. I live at 7621 Old Roxbury Road. We moved to New Kent and we bought A1 property for a reason. Allowing this campground is going to open the door for others to propose businesses on A1 land. Right now, Municipal Code 98-873 subsection D states that the minimum acreage for a campground shall be 20 acres. Period. That's what it states. It doesn't state possibly 20, maybe 20, a little less than 20. It says 20. The property there is 15 acres. In addition, there are 2 homes on the property already, and the code states only the owner or manager can live on site. With there already being a water shortage in the county, putting in a bathhouse is also going to deplete the water even more. Right now, we're trying to figure out where the county is going to get water, and we're going to have to buy that water. We have a lot of avid hunters in the area, as Summer stated. Again, we have a lot of insecurities about how to ensure that our hunters are going to be safe from the people who are, camping, not because we fear that they're going to hurt the hunters, but somebody comes out there with their 3 kids, and maybe those children don't pay attention to those signs, and they don't know that they need to have blaze orange on, and somebody is back there hunting on their own property, and someone's child gets hurt. That's a big, huge concern for us. Essentially, there's an attempt to engage in what I consider to be spot zoning going on in our county, and if this goes through, that's essentially what's happening. The purpose of A1 zoning is to preserve farmland and to protect the rural character of the community. The campground represents commercial hospitality use, allowing the campground that encourages additional non-agricultural commercial proposals in rural areas. You allow one, you're going to have to start allowing others. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Michael Weigarts.
Michael Wiegarts, 7621 Old Roxbury Road. I'll make this quick. I just want to pose this question to the board members. You searched for your house for 6 months. You finally found your house on Old Roxbury Road. It was zoned A1. You didn't have to worry about a campsite moving in next to you. You put your life savings down on it. Would you want a campsite next to your house? Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Joyce?
Good evening. Michael Joyce. I live at 10416 Deer Lake Drive. First things first, and most importantly, Philippians 2 lives rent-free in my heart and in my head. In this case, we're going to do all things without disputing or grumbling. I'm picking, but I'm going to just keep it short to that. And I always think about serving with humility. So this is kind of close to my face. You guys are actually doing a really good job. There's parts of this that you guys already actually hit on and solved, which is pretty awesome. So I'm here tonight to support the Whitehead's application for the Bellington Hideaway. I want to start by saying this plainly. The concerns raised by the neighbors that we've just heard in preparation, I had this. People who live on Old Roxbury Road have every right to care deeply about what happens near their homes, their peace, their privacy, and their long-term character of their community. I respect that, and I don't dismiss it. It is very serious. But it's also exactly why the county has a conditional use permit process. A CUP exists so New Kent can look at the specific use on specific parcel with specific facts and decide whether it can work with reasonable conditions. New Kent has done that before with uses on agricultural land elsewhere, including event venues, dog boarding, and telecommunications infrastructure and other non-traditional uses. The county also has denied CUPs when it believed a use was not the right fit. So this is not a rubber stamp process, and it should not be. And I know you guys know that probably better than me. So what is being proposed here is not a subdivision. It's not a dense housing. It's not a data center. It's not a major commercial complex. It's a very small, family-run, high-end, outdoor concept with a limited number of sites. Screened by a tree line on an existing farm property. In my view, this is far more consistent with New Kent's rural identity than many other forms of growth. It showcases the natural beauty of the county. It creates private investment without asking the county to build the business for them. It supports small business, agritourism, and a responsible rural economic activity. If the county believes more guardrails are needed, then put them in the permit. Enforce the quiet hours, limit lighting, limit traffic, require a relationship with the health department. Again, you guys have already hit on all of this. Those are reasonable protections, but I do not believe that the application should be rejected simply because it is new or unfamiliar. New Kent says it values rural character and responsible economic development. This proposal gives the county a chance to support both at the same time. I respectfully ask that you support the permit with conditions you believe are appropriate, and for that I thank you. And a healthy perspective, this is not a loss of rural character. This is a landowner trying to make a rural character economically sustainable. Awesome, thank you. Oh, excuse me. I also have a reference and appendix source list, if you guys would like for the record, for reference of all the conditional use permits that New Kent County has approved in the past that are way more involved and intensive than a glamping site. By the way, if you guys haven't looked, glamping sites on the internet, it's pretty impressive. So, but I would like to submit this for the record. How do you guys do that?
Awesome. Mr. Ryder? Next on the list is Paul Cuomo.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Paul Cuomo, 3640 Milton Muse Court. I'm here to support the proposed Bellington Hideaway Agritourism Glamping Project in New Kent County. This thoughtfully scaled four-site agritourism experience offers a great balance between economic development and preservation of the county's rural character. By promoting low-impact tourism, it provides new economic opportunities for local farmers and small businesses while allowing visitors to connect with the land in a sustainable way. Projects like this help diversify the local economy without overburdening our infrastructure. And the limited number of sites show a clear commitment to maintaining privacy, environmental stewardship, and community compatibility. Bellington Hideaway reflects the kind of responsible growth that aligns with New Kent County's values and long-term vision. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Harris.
I'm Cindy Harris, and I live at 7850 Old Roxbury Road. I don't usually get up and speak about anything unless I'm totally passionate about it, and it's something that I love. And I'm totally passionate about what these kids are doing, and I love them very much and trust them in everything they do. They don't lie, they're sincere, and boy, do they love that farm. I grew up on a farm in Illinois. Jason grew up on a farm. Trina spent time at her grandparents' farm growing up when we weren't off somewhere on some other area moving because of the Air Force and military. And that's what started her loving it. The boys love the farm. I love taking care of those animals. I love going out this morning. If somebody wanted to come out with me at 5 in the morning, you're more than welcome to. I go out the back door because the front door, there's too much light pollution. I go out the back door and there's the Big Dipper right there. Or you can see the space stations go over. It's a fabulous place to be. Go out and feed the little lambs. We've got triplets that we're bottle feeding. And then come back in, go out, feed everybody later. Love to have somebody come and help. And later on, the strawberries are already coming out. The blueberries are coming out. Come and help pick those. They want to share their property. They love that property. They've spent so much time, effort, and a whole lot of money so that they could share it with other people. So please understand that they are sincere and they'll do everything that they can. They love this county. That's why they moved here. That's why they've spent so much time and effort in wanting to share their home, their small area with people that don't have that opportunity, that don't see the stars, that have never held a baby lamb or a chick, or picked strawberries and made jam with Katrina. So please, that's what it's all about. Thank you for your time. And I'm not just a mother, I love this too.
Thank you. Let's see. Kelsey Delph.
Yes, you pronounced it correctly. It's Delph, like Philadelphia. My name's Kelsey Delph, and I live at 8217 Old Roxbury Road. I believe 2 properties down across the street on the curve, which if you went to that property, you probably drove down that curve. My primary concern with this request is the amount and types of traffic it will bring to an already dicey road, especially as I live on the curve and my mailbox has already been nailed by a driver so badly it went flying halfway across my yard. I would sooner see a walking path along that road than any business. There's already Judy's Plants on Old Roxbury Road as it is, so I do worry about what kind of precedent this approval sets. My secondary concern is additional noise and undue disturbance, as I believe this area is zoned as agricultural, not commercial. Some people driving by honk daily in front of my house in anticipation of that curve, which is already a disturbance. There's hunting and shooting every week on the property next to mine into the evening hours with the access path directly adjacent to / behind my property, which is also a disturbance. I am quite reserved and I keep to myself. I have never been to any meeting of this nature in my life, but as this would directly impact my experience living in my neighborhood, I felt it necessary to attend. It concerns me that most of those in support of this don't live in the neighborhood, thus would not have to deal with the immediate consequences. While I can only speak for myself, I do appreciate the peaceful nature of my neighborhood and would prefer for it to remain as such.
Thank you. That concludes the public comment portion of the public hearing. Any final questions from the commissioners?
I have a question. First of all, I want to say thank you for the work that you do with the Boy Scouts, but I do have a question for Mr. Silva. In regards, I want to zoom into one of the topics that the young lady discussed, and I read it over the weekend as well. This 15 acres versus 20 acres. If this ordinance is in place, tell me, how did we get here? Clarify what's happening here.
Yeah, so building upon Chair Bennett's question from earlier, so that provision that was referred to a few times, 98-873D, so those performance standards that are listed under, so those are all subsections based on a specific use group under the larger 98-870. And so if you look at the purpose, and then that section in specific is titled Purpose and Application of Performance Standards. So all of the performance standards that follow that are the ones that apply to those various use groups. And under 98-870A, it specifically calls out that the purpose of this section is to establish performance standards allowed in the county in business and manufacturing zone classifications. So as an agricultural zone property, the way that those provisions have been applied historically in the county is that those performance standards apply to uses that develop in business or manufacturing zone classifications. So given that the request before you this evening is not one that would rezone the property to a different zoning designation than its existing designation of A1, and is simply a CUP for a use that in an A1 zoning designation, those performance standards would not apply to the CUP. As I was kind of referring to earlier, we do often call upon those performance standards to inform CUP conditions, but they do not apply as a sort of blanket statement in this case. It is a good point. A lot of people don't, when they hear A1 zoning designation, certainly the comprehensive plan defines that as being low density and rural in character. But campgrounds are not unique with respect to being the only commercial use allowed in A1 zoning designations. There can be things like animal hospitals, commercial kennels, antique shops, daycares, amusement facilities, even waste transfer stations are all things that can also be allowed in A1 zoning designations with approval of a CUP. So that is not a kind of, campgrounds aren't unique in that way, is the point I seek to make by saying that.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
If there's no other questions, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn it back over to the chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Commissioners, final chance for any discussion, open discussion on this.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Ms.
All right, we talked about some conditions here. We talked about sunset clause. We need to probably decide on whether we do the 12-month or 24-month, or if we were to add that into the application.
Agreed. Mr. Silver, please, if you would come to the podium. Again, my premise is that this is a new venture for these property owners, and I think they're entering it cautiously, and they have some expectations. And if it should fail, if it should win, if this goes through, we recommend approval, and the board recommends approval, and they get their conditional use permit, and they continue with operation, that's a win. But if they should find it failing and they find that they need to close the doors or shutter the operation for the yurts and the campground, then I think the conditional use permit should close on that, so that maybe there's another opportunity for another property owner to go through the same process and maybe do maybe a better job or a slightly different job, but still under a conditional use permit. I would hate to see that this condition run with the land ad infinitum forever and ever and ever. So that's why I'm thinking the condition of a timeline is important in this case.
Well, I would like to suggest one thing. Permitting sometimes takes a little while to get, and it could be up to 6 months to get some approvals. I worry that maybe it would be a little bit too tight if we said 12 months, but I would be very comfortable with the 2-year time.
Well, if I may, my idea is to, the use permit, they would start the use, okay? It's only when they find they are not using it for a solid 12 to, say, 24 or 36-month period, continuously not in use. That kind of is my trigger, like they've already put the candlelight out.
Will that
Okay.
still cover the thing? We've had some permits come before us that we got the permits, but it never came to reality. Would that also cover that?
So, and Mr. Silva, I think there are conditions that are outlined that before the permit is issued, they had to meet certain criteria, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if they don't meet those criterias, they don't get the permit anyway, okay? This is only if they get the permit and then they discontinue the use. Is my provision in this as a condition.
I have a question here. In regards to the last statement you made, conditional use permit goes with the property, not with the business. Am I correct about that? It's supposed to be connected to the property.
Unless otherwise stipulated by a separate condition designating that the conditional use permit would be granted to the applicant only or something like that, yes, you're correct. It would run with the land.
Okay. The next thing is when we are putting stipulations on, say, this family, and you put into place, if it's another owner, I think it's starting to kind of, I don't want to say muddy the water. So suppose they want to turn this business over to their children. Their children would have to go through this. Why can't we leave it as what the rest of the CUPs have done in the past, which is it is connected to the property and not to the actual business?
It's been my understanding from my experience that when property turns with a use permit understood with a property, the second owner is not always under the same understanding of the conditions of that use permit. So if it expires with the property owner, it doesn't prevent the second owner from applying for this conditional use permit. It only says you don't have one right now, you have to reapply. It's keeping continuity of the understanding of why that original use permit was issued. Yes, sir.
Are we considering putting sunset clauses on all business?
Yeah.
We have been doing that.
I suggest we haven't. If you go back to,
Excuse me, sir. Yeah, we have in recent history been trying to do that.
you have done some.
Yeah,
My point is if we're going to do it for one, we need to do it for all. And there are a number of reasons why I could think if I'm sitting in their position, I might not do it for a year. But why should I lose it? Maybe I'm sick. You know, there are all kinds of reasons why. And so I'm hesitant to start putting something on some folks and not on everybody else. If we're going to do it, if we're going to have sunset clauses on everything, that's fine. But if we're just going to pick and choose which ones we do sunset, I don't think we're being fair.
Mr. Hathaway, I would suggest this, a period of years back when we had this same discussion about sunset clause, we were told that it could not be done at that time, but it can be done, and we kept saying that it could be done. Now, I do suggest that we make that a practice throughout the rest of our history when we do these applications, because we don't want this stuff sitting out there that's not being dealt with. Perhaps this piece of property, she has this and then decides, okay, I don't want to do this type of agriculture business, but I could do a produce type business. So it would allow them to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to do this one, but now I'd like to try to do this one.
But you're assuming if I'm looking at this applicant, thank you. If I'm looking at this applicant, okay, and we're saying if they stop doing it for 12 months, that doesn't mean they don't own the land.
I agreed. Agreed.
But when you say 12 months, that's saying that they must stop. They must end it at 12 months. That
It means that the conditions, the conditional use permit expires. Doesn't mean that the use of the land expires. That's allowed under the agricultural district.
But why couldn't they take 12 months off and say, I don't want to do it for 12 months?
I'm saying I'm in the position of saying I don't care whether it's 12 months, 24 months, or 36 months, but I do not believe it should ride ad infinitum forever and ever and ever, because the conditions and the meanings of what was agreed to in the beginning of it change over time.
Then we should put that in the code and make that a part of the code, but not sit here and say, okay, on this case we're going to do it, and then on this case we won't. Put it in the code.
I agree with with Reverend Hathaway, because it does appear that in some cases, some folks come in front of us and we have different standards. Even through the application process, when the people are standing in front of us, some go smoothly, and some it just lasts and go on and on and on. And I've had questions myself about that. But to place a 12-month on particular businesses and not all businesses, it doesn't seem fair. And I do agree that it should be, the CUP should be on the property and not the business.
If it's not in the code, you could very well be opening yourself up to a lot of legal challenges.
I hear what you're saying, but I think if we are clear, absolutely clear, then there's no discussion about it. It is clear from the front that everybody has a layer of expectation. So long they abide by the expectation, then everybody can move forward from it.
But it's only clear if you put it in the code.
Well, if we make this a condition of the permit, then we've in essence put it into their code for that property.
The code for that property and specifically. Even if we did it, you can't do it for the entire code because it's a conditional use permit. We're looking at this in a condition for this use specifically.
Correct.
It's not for every conditional use permit we see, because you came to us last year with a conditional use permit for your own property. We've seen these for properties regularly. I mean, it's every meeting. We had one. The first item on the agenda was 200 people at one time on the same style of road. So there's a condition to every property. We can't say it has to be in the code. It doesn't need to be. It needs to be per our decision and what stipulations we want as a board for this applicant's submission. If it's somebody else comes to us next month with a different application for a campground, we can have different specifics for that process. That's why we do these meetings.
But if you come,
we can put different stipulations on different businesses. That's what our role is.
But you have to be consistent across the board. You cannot simply say, I'm going to do it on this one, and then on a similar one, you don't. And if we want to be consistent, put it in the code so that I know that.
Well, they don't need to put, if certain properties would not need to pull a conditional use permit because they would fall within the code. The reason they pull it is for us to have this discussion to say yes or no.
What I'm saying is, under the criteria for conditional use permit, if we want a sunset clause, let's put that in so it goes into every conditional use permit. But to pick and choose, I don't think we're being fair, and I can see a whole lot of legal challenges with that.
And just to add this point, I'm glad you brought up, I did stand in here and go through the process. And my interview actually looked a lot different from the last one that stood in here before.
The first item today.
Say that again?
The first item today?
Yes.
Yes.
That was smoothly. Mine did not go that way. And it was a difference in the whole hearing process. And if you don't believe me.
No, I believe you 100%.
The video.
I believe you 100%.
So there is a difference in how these are conducted, and that's why I brought this up. If we're to put 12 months on them, I think it should be longer, because like Mr. Hathaway said, it can they can go a year without doing something. But the conditional use permit is not a cheap process. It's expensive.
No, it's not.
And for it to expire after 12 months, after going through all of this, I think it's overreaching.
Well, I don't think that the 12 months is an expiration of the conditional use permit. It's a 12 months from cease of operation. If they cease operation, and I agree with you, 12 months is not long enough. I think 24 months is probably what we should look at, 2 years. And the only way that we can rectify that is through the Commissioner of Revenue, knowing that they're paying what they're paying in their taxes. If we are not receiving any payment for their monthly stipend, then for 24 months, then at that point, then we need to terminate that CUP, or 36 months. It could be 5 years. It doesn't matter.
That's not a concern of the Planning Commission. That's a concern of the Commissioner of Revenue. And we shouldn't be getting in their lane. Our lane is to look at this and say, does this meet the requirements of our procedures or the code?
And if it's in operation, and they can abide by the conditions of the conditional use permit, I agree with you. Mm-hmm. But once they cease operations, they could be jeopardizing their conditional uses as authorized, and their permit could be expired based on those. What I'm trying to do is, instead of locking up land, say this one parcel of land with a unlimited year supply of operating a campground, if they should close the doors, allow somebody else to do it.
But that's their land, and they're not talking about selling their land.
No, I'm not saying they're selling their land.
Well, how do you allow someone else to do it if they still own the land?
They get a conditional use permit too?
I think he's saying not on that property. He's saying across the board, you're making a conditional use for this. If we had 10 of these ahead of us in the next year, would we say yes to every single one of those? Probably not, because we're trying to stop some of this. But we're looking at one. When we start to see more, then do we sit there and we say, okay, now we need to look at the code. How often are we seeing these? Well, we're seeing one. This is the first one I've seen. I've been on the board for 3 years, and I'm sure some of you maybe have seen more. But we can't, they're conditional use permits. The reason why we have these is so we can put our stipulations on it that say, this is what we think as a board. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to next month's vote. Not even what we say tonight is only our conditions. They can change those conditions when they go to the board next month.
Perhaps we need to have a workshop on conditional use permits and spell out how we're going to apply them. But to sit here and say, okay, we're going to treat this one this way, and then when the next one comes, I got to remember exactly how we did that. Let's put it in our procedures to say for conditional use permits, these are at least the standards that you've got to meet. For me, I used to be the last house on the road that I live on, okay? And there were 2 property owners, and so I could walk through everything with their permission. Mm-hmm. And I was so happy to be the last house, but now there are probably 80 houses. Not that many.
Just 44.
There are 44 houses, and I thought I was going to be the last house and have free reign.
Reverend Hathaway, I understand your position, okay? This practice of putting limits on a conditional use is practiced in other jurisdictions too. I understand you may want some limitations on it or clearly defined avenues for when this applies and doesn't apply. But when I came to the commission, I started thinking, we've got so many things outlined that people can get different interpretations of what they can use their property for and how they can use it, and they're misinterpreting what the original intent was. And that comes over the course of time in the absence of use on the property or practicing what their conditions are. I rather see it a little more defined and them comply than erode what their meanings are. So yes, we do have that opportunity coming up when we go through the zoning rewrite. Okay, I would tell you to earmark that. Let's continue that discussion. I presume you probably would not vote in favor of any kind of condition on this, Again, I am not suggesting that the conditions start from day one, the timeline for the conditions start at day one, once approved by the board. I'm saying when they comes into disuse and then the timeline of whether it's 20, 12, 24, 36 months, that's when it expires, not from day one.
Well, so that you don't have to assume. I'm okay with conditions that staff has already presented.
I understand.
I reviewed those conditions, and I'm satisfied that they meet the requirements. What I'm not in favor of is us just haphazardly saying, we're going to do this on this for some unforeseen thing. I really believe that there could be a possibility where, for any reason, they may not be able to do it for a year or so. And it's 12 months, okay? It's 24 months? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm saying let's look at conditional use permits, determine how we want to use them so we're consistent across the board. Because I don't want to see us, and I've been doing this on the Planning Commission for 15 years in the two gaps. And so I've seen the whole gamut of this. And I don't want to see us doing one procedure for one group and then down the road completely switching when it's the exact same situation.
I understand.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
All right. This is not going to add any clarification. I'm going to offer this. So under the zoning ordinance also lists specific restrictions for conditional use permits. Restrictions on any conditional use permit may include, but are not limited to, the following: timing or phasing of development. I consider this probably that general topic. It doesn't give us any guidance, but gives us the ability to, again, whichever side of the fence you're on, I think move in a direction. Again, not offering any help to the discussion, but I do think it's within our purview that we can obviously identify things that are related to timing or phasing of development, just as we can with hours of operation, access to and from subject property, all the other conditions as well that we are addressing for CUP. And I'm going to, if I may,
Certainly.
Can I change direction a little bit?
Sure.
So, Mr. Silva, regarding the zoning, campgrounds are not a by right use under any zoning.
Correct. Campground uses are permitted in 3 zones in the county, all only with conditional use permits. So that would be under the
A1, conservation, and what's the other?
economic opportunity, sir.
Okay. So it's no other there's no place in New Kent that they can do this by right.
No.
So it's all by virtue of a CUP.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
And not to rub salt in anybody's wounds, but there was 3 items that were mentioned with regards to additional conditions. Okay. One was the inspection and location of the campfire, okay, by the fire department. That was not mentioned in the conditions of the conditional use permit. The other one is not transferable to a new property owner. Again, to keep the consistency of understanding the same. Let them apply for a new permit if they should desire to do the same thing. So those were the 3, which is an expiration date, a non-transferable, and then the campfire location inspection by the fire department. So I will entertain whether we should vote on this or just make it inclusive and let your vote respond to those with your vote. But let's say the board, commission with regards to those 3 conditions or any of them separately.
I have a question on that. Can you tell us a ballpark figure, what it would cost, what this the CUP has cost the applicant, and if the CUP were to lapse under these conditions due to illness or anything like that, then they got to go through it again. What are we talking about?
It's several $1,000s.
The fee that they pay the county was $1,810, according to the form.
But I wasn't sure if that was complete. Is that everything?
So there's the way the
We also paid a soil engineer to ensure that our property was appropriate for wastewater.
with respect to the CUP fees themselves, there's a base fee and then there's a floating fee based on the acreage associated with the proposed use. So, the base fee is about $1,635. At most of them end up being more in the $2,000 range, as Ms. Thomas said. Just for the filing fee for the application, that is, not factoring in other costs associated with fitting the site for the use.
Also, if they had, the way that I'm hearing this, if they had children and something was to happen to one of them and they wanted to continue on, the children would have to do this whole $2,000 thing again, right?
Not as currently worded. You know, as presented, the conditions that staff put forward do not include that condition that would, you know, assign the.
I actually agree with what the staff
I
put
see,
forward.
yeah.
I just had the question about the whole 15 acre versus 20. That's the only issue that I had lingering in my mind. You kind of resolved that. But in regards to putting the extra language in that Mr. Bennett is asking for, in regards to if a new owner is to take, new owners could be children.
Yeah. It's an interesting question. It depends on how that language is worded ultimately. You know, if it were to be for just, this is giving an example, this is not what I'm recommending by any means, but if there were to be a condition that the CUP were granted to the applicant only, technically that would be limited to the applicant names that were on the submitted application. So if it wasn't under like an LLC that was part of their farm that could be easily transferred to, you know, family or something like that, that could potentially create an issue in the context you're talking about. But again, as submitted by staff, the conditions don't contain any such condition. It would instead travel with the land, as is the standard practice typically.
Mr. Silva.
Yes,
Can I
ma'am.
ask you a question? If the applicant was to go into this venture and say 10 years from now they don't want to do it anymore, can they remove the CUP?
I don't know.
Because it's going with the
Goes with the property.
property, right?
Yes. I mean, I think theoretically they could, you know, the applicant on their own accord could submit something that they are by their own volition voiding the CUP request that they made. I think, you know, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to necessarily speak to the solidness of that part, but I think reasonably an applicant could request to discontinue the CUP for which they've applied.
So if they were to have this sunset clause and say for 2 years they don't operate, then the CUP goes away, then that would give them the opportunity not to have to do anything because it would be removed. And then also they could apply for something else. Because with agriculture, there's a lot of varieties a lot of things you can do. There are a lot of niche farming that we call it. Perhaps you don't like this one, but you want to do this one now, but it's not the same. It's just a whole different process. I don't know. I just think that it's kind of a safety net for them as well if they decide that it's not for them. I mean, they've got children, so that means they got ball games and they got brownies and they got 18 and 20. Okay. Well, now grandchildren. So you know. Grandchildren. Yeah. Oh, please no. But things change. The economy changes. It could be that maybe this doesn't work out. So wouldn't a sunset clause sort of be protection as well?
If they wanted it. But if their children wanted to do this, then they've got to go through the permitting process again. Because the language that I'm hearing tonight is that it's conditional to these two people who signed
However,
that's what it should be with the land. But the proposal that I'm hearing here,
if it should go to a trust.
Why do they have to set up
No,
a trust?
I'm just saying, if it goes to a trust, then the children become part. I mean, if the children are part of the trust, then there's no. It's a transfer internally, but as far as the court's concerned, it's still under same ownership.
But that should not be our position to tell
I understand, but you understand my position
Right.
is that I'm trying to provide other opportunities that have languished that otherwise have languished and are standstill without any that we may limit the number of campgrounds in New Kent County at some point in time. And if it's riding on the books forever and ever and ever, then there's going to be a need to eliminate it on the books so that another opportunity could come to fruition.
I just heard a mother say that she loves going and working and feeding the animals on her children's farm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what if those parents, if their children want to do it at some point, now we're making them come back in and apply?
It depends on how, I'm sure Mr. Silver will realize, it depends on how the transfer or how the land is titled, okay? If it's put in a trust, there could be many, many benefactors of the trust. The children, the grandchildren,
What
all right.
does it cost to put it in a trust?
But I'm just giving an example, okay? I'm just giving an example.
So
Again, either way, what I see coming is if my condition should hold, the need to eliminate it will cost money. If my condition shouldn't hold, then it just rides with the land, and then we have a problem to remove it somehow later. So if it's necessary.
But how many times are you going back and removing conditional use permit unless they're not abiding by it?
Well,
if I may be so bold, what I'm kind of hearing through the through line in this conversation is kind of trying to reconcile how the county would like to standardize approach to new uses, some that may be the first of their kind in the county. And on a sort of at a macro level view, this is the exact type of conversation that I think would be important to consider as part of the zoning ordinance update. If the commission's desire is to establish a more standardized approach that is codified in our code, certainly the state provides us flexibility to do that. So while I do understand, there's kind of a dialogue around the specific condition.
Yeah, I thank you, Mr. Silva. So what I'm hearing is, unless I hear otherwise, there's no need to move whether we add any additional conditions to this conditional use permit, that we should go ahead and consider the conditional use permit as stated, as the conditions that apply, and vote on as is.
What I'm speaking to is there is no need to add the sunset clause. There are others that you've talked about and that they've agreed to, that's fine, but not the sunset clause. I think that as a business owner, if I've got children, I would hope, I'm a pastor, I wanted my son, instead of being a county administrator, to be a pastor.
Where'd that get you?
He's a county administrator. Yeah, I wanted to pass that tradition on to him like my dad passed to me.
Okay.
But I don't want to make it difficult to pass a business on that you care about. When I see a mother that loves it and I see children that loves it, perhaps your children, they're 18 and 20 something, who knows, when they're 25, they may just want to do that.
All right.
I have a question, Mr. Silva. Did they apply for this conditional use permit for the land, or did they apply for it for themselves? Because if they applied for it for the land, the kids inherit the land, it's still in use for the kids. Am I right?
So as currently worded, yes, that would be the case. The only
It's going for the land.
That's correct.
Okay.
The only reason that would not be the case is if there were an additional condition added to tie it to the applicant in specific. In this case, the applicant on the application was listed as Jason and Katrina White.
So when the kids inherit the land, then they have the conditional use permit
Correct.
to do the same thing.
As is proposed currently, correct.
Okay. So with that, I'll give you one last chance. Okay. With that, I will call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, if I could be so bold.
Be as bold as you want.
I would like to make a motion in order to address, protect, and promote public convenience, necessity, general welfare, and good zoning practices in the county. I move to adopt resolution number PC 05-26 to forward application CUP-02-2026 to the New Kent County Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation. I further move that the Planning Commission find its project to be in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan, with the additional condition of an inspection by the fire marshal prior to opening, and the additional conditions as identified by staff previously.
I have a motion to recommend approval for the CUP with the added condition. Mr. Ryder, please roll call vote.
Ms. Townsend?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Ms. Thomas?
Aye.
Mr. La Rochelle?
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Reverend Hathaway?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye. Thank you very much, Commissioners. That was a healthy discussion. I'm sorry it took so long. With that, Where am I on the agenda? Ah, yes. Yes. This concludes the program for the night. Our next meeting schedule is scheduled for Monday, May 18th, 2026, 6 p.m. in this room. If there is no other business to be had, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. It is 8:28.